Hi everyone, I'm Asia Dang, and thank you so much for joining our very first 30-day challenge of 2025. If you've clicked on this video, chances are you're either pregnant, trying to become pregnant, or maybe you're just curious about what it takes to be baby ready in America in 2025. As I am not currently, nor have I ever been pregnant, so go ahead and delete that sentence you're about to comment right now. I teamed up with my friend, certified financial planner practitioner, mama of two, and overall personal finance baddie, Eryn Schultz from Her Personal Finance, to build this 30-day challenge that will not only help you prepare financially for those immediate expenses, but also those long-term keep you up at night expenses as well. As always, these 30-day challenge calendars are absolutely free. You can go ahead and click the link in the description box if you want to check it out and follow along during this video. And if you're an organized planner girly like I am, there is a Get Ready for Baby Notion template. New product alert on masterplan.co. This template was actually built for this challenge specifically. So it includes budgets, checklists, a daily task database, and even discounts from small businesses within this community. That's available in the description box as well. But with all that being said, let's jump into phase one of this 30-day Get Baby Ready challenge. Phase one is all about assessing and organizing where you are financially today. And on day one, you're just going to review your current budget. I feel like all our challenges are somehow going to start with figuring out where you are financially, and obviously getting baby ready is no exception. What adjustments do you need to make within your budget in order to make you feel more comfortable financially when it's time to have your baby? So if you already have a budget, day one is going to be super easy for you. Maybe you realize it's time to cut back on some expenses like dining out or travel. But if you've never built a budget before, check out my How to Build a Budget for Beginners video up in the cards. Once you review and maybe redo your current budget, on day two, you're going to calculate your savings. Eryn is going to deep dive a little bit more into the specifics about what you may need financially to get ready for a baby. But just for day two, you're going to get a rough estimate about how much you need for your baby prep, and then maybe how much you need to increase your emergency fund to include a +1 or maybe a +2, like my cousin. He just had twins. As a reminder, an emergency fund should be at least 3 months of expenses into a high yield savings account. When you do have a baby, you are going to increase those expenses. So maybe take a look at where you are financially in your emergency fund and see if you need to increase that. On day three, you're going to list out potential upcoming baby expenses. This can be done in your budget planner. This can be done in the Notion template, but it should include things like medical costs, future childcare, and ongoing costs like maybe formulas and diapers. Doing this so early on in the challenge on day three is not meant to freak you out. Eryn and I just want you to be prepared. The good news is, depending on where you are on your baby journey, you may have a lot of time to start saving up for some of these things. With more on day 4 through 6, here's Eryn.
Hi Asia, thanks for passing it over to me. As a mom of two and a certified financial planner, I really love helping other people get financially ready for baby. So you're on day 4 of the challenge, and that's really gonna be building a baby budget. For most people, your number 1 and your number 2 costs when you have kids are going to be housing costs and childcare. Do you need to move to a bigger house or apartment in order to have room for a baby? Are you going to need to pay for childcare on an ongoing basis? Most of us will. What could that look like? The other things to look at here are there any places that you anticipate your spending might decrease? Are you gonna be traveling less, eating out less? And what you want to do is pull it all together and look at the big picture. With these added costs, so maybe I'm going to have a big mortgage payment or higher childcare costs that I haven't had in the past, do I have room in the budget to pay for these things today? Or am I going to need to make some changes? A raise, or maybe cutting back, like maybe I can't be spending on eating out or clothes like I have in the past. Really getting real about that before you have kids can set you up for financial success instead of being really unpleasantly surprised when you have $2,000 a month in childcare costs and all of a sudden you maybe have some credit card debt. So now I'm going to talk about day 5, which is to really pay attention during open enrollment and benefit season. So in the past, if you were young and healthy, you might have defaulted to your company or the marketplace's cheapest plan with the lowest premium, and maybe a really high deductible, and you never go to the doctor, so you haven't really had to pay attention to that. If you're pregnant now, All of a sudden going to the doctor is like your favorite extracurricular activity because you go so much. I've already had 2 doctor visits for my kids so far this month. So I say that because you're gonna wanna pay a lot more attention during open enrollment as you're picking your health insurance and other benefits. Health insurance is the biggie though, so look at what is my premium going to be with these different plans and what does that do to my deductible. The weird thing about the dumpster fire that is the American healthcare system is you pay a premium, but your healthcare doesn't actually really start covering any of your costs other than preventative care until you hit your deductible, which could be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. So you wanna pay attention to the premium, which is what you're guaranteed to pay no matter what, whether you go to the doctor or not, and the deductible, because if you're going to be going to the doctor a lot with kids, that could really matter. One thing to really pay attention to is, does your plan have a different deductible for each family member? In the year that you have a baby, if you have one deductible and the baby would have their own, that could actually really increase your costs if you had a baby that, God forbid, needed a NICU stay or something like that. I give that as an example of things to pay attention to during this challenge. Day 6, in that same vein, set a reminder if you're pregnant today to add your baby to your insurance. You might be like, what? Why do I have to add my baby to my insurance? For the first 60 days after they're born, your baby will generally be covered by any insurance that you're already on. But after that point, you actually have to add them as a dependent. And you're gonna be tired, and you're gonna be sleep deprived, and you're gonna be focused on changing diapers and spit up and how to get your baby to sleep. You're not gonna be thinking about health insurance once the baby's born. So when you're pregnant, set a reminder today. You generally get 90 days to add them after they're born. Set it for 60 and just make sure you take care of that so that your child will be insured once that first 60-day period is up.
As we finish the very first week of this 30-day challenge, I want you to reflect and share your wins. The first phase of this challenge is always really difficult because we're forcing you to confront really intense financial realities. But you're on the other side now with more knowledge, so it's time to celebrate a job well done. We finished phase 1, which might have been emotionally, financially exhausting, but phase 2 might be worse. Because even though we touched upon this in phase 1, in phase 2, we are focusing on baby-related costs. Phase 1 was more of a macro view of your potential expenses, but on phase 2, we are focusing on things that need to be discussed and figured out all before your water breaks. So for more about day 8, 9, 10, and 11, here's Eryn.
So day 8 is to research your medical costs. I've done a lot of interviews with women about what it actually costs to have a baby, and generally you should expect somewhere between $4,000 to $11,000. And honestly, this is gonna seem strange, but because that's a big range, but you have a sense today of when I've gone to the doctor, how good is my insurance? If you generally pay pretty close to nothing or not a lot for going to the doctor, you might be on the lower end of that range. If every time you go to the doctor, you're like, why do I even have insurance? It feels like it doesn't cover anything. That's when you might be paying more. The other things to think about are, what kind of birth am I going to have? You don't always know that in advance, but a vaginal birth is going to be cheaper than a C-section. If you have a baby that has some health complications, I kind of talked about that before, those are all things that can add to your costs and might be things you don't know in advance. But the numbers you can know are, what is my deductible? You almost certainly will hit it in the year you have a baby. And what is my out-of-pocket maximum? You can ask HR or go to your insurance portal and look at your policy to find that information, but that's for the most part going to tell you the high end of what you pay as long as you stay in network. Day 9 is to start a baby registry. And this is an interesting one because this is how you get to ask your community to basically show up and give you things to help you get ready for kids. When you have baby 2, baby 3, it's a lot cheaper than baby 1 because you already have all the gear. And I think the big thing here is to be thoughtful and to focus on the big ticket items. Crib, stroller, etc. Clothes are kind of a nice to have. You can also get a ton of stuff used on Facebook Marketplace at a fraction of the cost. You gotta know what your community is willing to give you. I find people aren't gonna often shop on Facebook Marketplace or used as a gift. And so think about, what are the things that I can't get on my own or that I'm gonna get my best bang for my buck for with a registry. You can also register for diapers. You could get a year's worth of diapers if you're really thoughtful and you ask people for it up front. You can also put a 529 link which is a college savings account, on your registry as well, if that's the main place that you want people to help you. But no, if you're asking for the 529, you're gonna have to come up with the costs of paying for that crib, that stroller, etc. Plan for your maternity and paternity leave. And this one's tough because depending on where you work, you might have a really big difference in leave. For the most part, we do not get paid maternity leave in the United States. Legally, it is not kind of written into law. So some employers have great leave, others don't. You also really want to understand, do I need to sign up for short-term disability? For a lot of employers, that is actually part of your maternity leave. I didn't realize this before becoming a mom, but one of the reasons you get paid leave is you physically are recovering as well. And interestingly, short-term disability will cover you for 8 weeks if you have a C-section, 6 if you have a vaginal birth. Now, that is not a reason to opt for a C-section because your recovery is also a lot harder, but understand the fine print of what your policy is and how much you can plan for. If you know that you want to take 6 months off and you only get 3 months paid, do you have some vacation that can cover it? Can you take unpaid time off? How are you going to cover that? What leave does your partner get, if any? It is still pretty uncommon for non-birth parents to get paid leave in the United States, but I was lucky enough that my husband got 14 weeks of paid leave. That was huge. We actually made the decision to stagger our leave, so I took mine first, he took his later. We overlapped the first 2 weeks together so that we had longer before we needed to have paid childcare. So the right decision is going to differ based on your family, but look at what your options are. Day 11 is budgeting for some of those ongoing costs like diapers and formula. Now, there's going to be a huge range with what this could be, depending on, do you want organic? Do you completely breastfeed? Do you go straight to formula? Some of that is sort of unknowable before you have a kid, but generally I'd say diapers might be somewhere around $100 a month. Again, depends on the brand. Formula could also be about that amount of money, but that depends on what brand you're buying. If you're supplementing with formula and breastfeeding in addition, it might be more like $20 to $30 a month. That's been more what my experience has been, but I'll say in general, those are much lower total costs than what you would see for childcare, which might be $2,000 to $3,000 a month, even for one kid, depending on where you live, for daycare or a nanny or whatever that option is for you.
On day 12, I want you to schedule time with your parents, your grandparents, your in-laws to see if they are willing to offer any help. As a child of 2 flight attendants, my brother and I heavily relied on my popo for childcare. She took us to school, she would make our meals, she went to literally every extracurricular activity that we had, and we had a lot, and she did it all for free. This is very common in Hawaii and Asian communities where we rely heavily on our grandparents to assist with childcare. So do you have that luxury? Now on day 13, if you do not have the luxury of relying on family for childcare, today you're gonna break down your childcare options and how much that's gonna cost. You're gonna research daycares, nannies, night nurses, mother's helper, house cleaners, whatever it is that you feel like you will need in order to make your life easier, you're gonna research it. Some of these are obviously very big luxuries, right? Like my best friend not only had a nanny, but they also had a night nurse. My other friend has something he calls a life helper who just comes in once or twice a weekend to help do kind of chores around the house, very basic chores. So that frees up more time for him to spend with his daughter. I actually polled my community on Instagram a few weeks ago to see how much they are spending on childcare costs, just so I can kind of put it in the Notion template and give you some guidance about what to expect. And honestly, it's kind of crazy. So if you have the time to start saving up for something that you know you're going to need, like I know that eventually Brian and I will have to need a nanny when the time comes, now's the time to start saving up for it. And then once you have your list written out, on day 14, you're gonna schedule interviews with relevant childcare or support, or try to get yourself on some wait lists. Now on phase 3, we are focusing on securing your financial future. This is going to be another intense week, although I feel like all of the phases have been pretty intense so far. So on day 15, I want you to celebrate yourself. You're halfway through with this challenge. So what are some things that you've learned thus far? Celebrate those mini wins, acknowledge your hard work, and just allow yourself some time to detox before the rest of phase 3. Days 16 through 22 are going to be spent on those long-term financial goals. So here's Eryn to break those down more.
We are back for day 16. You are more than halfway done. This is going to be some of the heavier stuff, so bear with me. But day 16 is going to be researching life and disability insurance. Not the fun stuff, but important to think about if someone or someone's is going to be dependent on your income. You do want to have life insurance, generally enough to discharge a mortgage on any home that you own so that if something did happen and you bought it assuming dual income, your partner would be able to stay in the home or whoever would be taking care of your kids without you. Most people recommend 10 to 15 times your income in term life insurance when you're just starting off. So if you've gotten a message before from someone trying to sell you whole life insurance, I'm not an insurance salesperson, but I'm generally an advocate for term. Term is exactly what it sounds like. You're paying for life insurance for something like 20 to 30 years. That's the length of the term. It's pretty cheap. So I pay $40 a month, and you can often get a policy like that for $1 million in coverage. And the idea there is to be able to replace your income and cover childcare costs, again, the cost of that mortgage. Some people, if you want to be on the higher end of that range, want to make sure that they're leaving their partner with some room or some dollars for their kids' college education. So up to you where you want to fall in that range, but term life insurance can be very powerful because most of you, if you have a corporate job, are probably getting 1 to 2 times your income, which is probably not going to be enough, especially if you have really young children, to get them through those college years. The reason I like term insurance is that hopefully, if you're young in your 30s right now, in 20 years, you might not need life insurance anymore because you've invested enough that you don't actually have to rely on an insurance product at that point. Now, disability insurance is also really important. And this one I would say is important even if you don't have kids because there's actually data that 1 in 4 of us will be disabled before the time that we're 65. And that might mean if you're a woman, postpartum depression that keeps you out of the workforce for a year, or, God forbid, cancer, or some sort of other long-term chronic illness that keeps you from working. So having disability insurance is important. Most corporate jobs come with 60% of your salary as disability insurance. For some of you, 60% of your salary would cover your base needs. For others of you, most of us, I'd say, probably won't, especially if you think about childcare costs being, $2,000 to $3,000 a month. So you want to make sure that you're also potentially buying disability insurance to supplement what you have from work, or if you're a small business owner or want to have protection so that no matter what job you have disability insurance. Having a policy outside of work is a best practice. Day 17, review estate planning. I'm gonna bet most of you don't have any kind of estate planning, which is more than just a will. It's also who's gonna be the guardian of my kids, but it's also a healthcare directive. So if you're incapacitated, who do you want making decisions for you and what should those decisions be? The first step is just to figure out, do I have any of this in place? I'm gonna bet you don't. So from there, you have to decide, hey, how am I going to get this done? Day 18 is researching legal group plans, which is one way you can get your estate planning done. A lot of corporate employers actually offer these. It's kind of like health insurance for lawyers. They will give you a list of lawyers who will accept your legal group plan, and you can then work with one of them to get all of those estate planning documents done. Often, legal group plans are actually $10 a month. I got our wills done for $72 through my husband's corporate legal group plan. And if you are not a corporate girly, don't despair, because some states, for example, I live in Texas, Texas has a legal group plan for individuals who reside in the state. So you might have an option even if you don't have one through your job. Now, day 19. This is where we're going to talk about planning for college savings. And it's interesting because I think people often want to start here, but there's so many things to do to be financially ready for kids that have nothing to do with college. So many parents today actually aren't even sure if their kids are going to go to college. But one of the accounts that I would say you should start by researching is a 529. 529s are a great savings vehicle, not just for college, but also for K through 12 education. They can also be used for vocational training. So if your kid doesn't go to a traditional four-year college, you could still use the $529 there. Honestly, for a lot of parents, if you are not where you want to be with retirement, Retirement should be before your kid's college savings. It's like putting your oxygen mask on first. But opening up a 529 can be a powerful way, even if you're not going to start by contributing to it, to say, hey, grandma, grandpa, instead of some Christmas gifts, would you consider contributing to the 529? Asking your friends, your siblings, if they want to do that instead of all the cheap plastic toys. We have so many toys. So now day 20. This is going to be actually opening up that college savings account. I did recommend researching 529s. It's not the only option. Some of you might want to instead go with an UGMA account, which is a custodian account. That's not going to be as good of a vehicle for college savings because it can negatively impact your financial aid award in a bigger way, and some of those accounts can generate taxes. But do your research. If you come down and you say, hey, I want to open up a 529, you can actually do it before baby is here. And a lot of people don't think you can, but the way you do it is you use your social security number to make yourself the beneficiary. And then once baby's here, you change the beneficiary to them. There's no tax implications of doing that either. Most people should open up the 529 in their state. And that is because a lot of states will actually give you a break on your income tax for that state if you contribute to your state's 529. Now, if you live in California or Texas, very different states, but Texas, no state income tax, so no deduction. Or you live in California, which has a high state income tax, but unfortunately you don't get a deduction for contributing to the 529. If you are in one of those scenarios, then you can pick any state's 529. Illinois and Utah are generally two of the higher ranked state plans. Research child tax benefits. Now, if you don't do this before baby comes, you're gonna be okay, but do know that once you have kids, you will get some breaks on your taxes. The biggest one to know is that you will get a child tax credit for every kid that you have. That is going to be $2,000. And it's a credit, not a deduction, which means it's basically $2,000 that it reduces your tax bill. There are some other tax credits that you might be eligible for, like the child and dependent care tax credit, but the biggie is going to be the child tax credit. Research if your company offers a dependent care FSA. FSA is a flexible spending account. A lot of you probably have one for healthcare. You might not know that there are also kind of special use, they're called FSAs, aka they're not for healthcare, but they're for kind of something specific, and one of them is dependent care. So let's say you have a $5,000 a month childcare bill because you've got 2 kids. You actually can put up to $5,000 into a dependent care FSA. Those dollars go in tax-free, so you're not gonna pay taxes on those dollars that you're contributing to the dependent care FSA, and you can then use it to pay for some of those childcare expenses and at least get a tax break on $5,000 of it. So that's not gonna be for everybody, but a good thing to understand and something you might wanna start contributing to once you have kids.
The good news is that we are in phase 4. We are almost done with this 30-day Get Baby Ready challenge. And then within phase 4, these days are going to be spent building sustainable habits. On day 23, you're going to explore free baby resources. Look for local parenting classes, those buy nothing groups on social media platforms, and I also feel like the library, your local library, should have some free resources for you as well. If you're a parent and have discovered any other free resources that I haven't mentioned, please let us know in the comments. On day 24, you're going to start a family financial goal. It's more so like building on things that we've already talked about in the earlier days, but maybe you're realizing that eventually you're going to outgrow your current home and need to move into something bigger. On day 24, we're not looking for you to completely finish fully funding a large financial goal. On day 24, we just want you to think about potentially places that you need to put money aside for the long term. On day 25, if you're co-parenting, it's time to talk to your partner about managing your finances with a child. Do you need a joint checking account or maybe a joint credit card? Or do you prefer to keep things separate and just Venmo each other back and forth? What does managing your money with a baby and a partner look like for you? The answer is not going to be the same, and it in fact may change once you kind of get the flow of things and figure things out as life goes on. But time to have that discussion, build kind of like a mini plan that can be adjusted if need be. On day 26, you're going to organize your digital finances. I feel like many of us, if we are already in kind of like the budgeting space, have done this, but y'all are going to be busy when you're raising a kid, so it's time to make some automations work for you. Set up auto payments, set up saving automations to make your life easier every single month. Automate your subscriptions, find yourself a budgeting app that you will like. How can you make the financial aspect of just life in general easy for you so you can concentrate on more important things like raising a child? On days 27 and 28, you're going to finalize your baby registry and finalize your baby prep budget. On day 29, you're going to share your journey. Again, this has been a very intense 29 days. How are you feeling? Eryn and I hope that you're feeling more confident and secure, but I'm sure that you've had a lot of emotions going on throughout the past 30 days. Engage with the challenge community, either in this comment section, on our Discord, on Eryn and my social media pages, and let us know how you're feeling. Post your reflections, and I promise you, you will get a lot of encouragement from not only fellow parents-to-be, but also just our community. And then on day 30, congrats! You have made it through another 30-day challenge. I want you to plan a celebration. Take this time to celebrate yourself, your success, your growth, and treat yourself to something small. So maybe it's a girls' night out. Maybe it is a mani-pedi. Maybe it is just allowing yourself an entire night to binge watch a K-drama or play Hello Kitty Island Adventure and not talk to anyone. Or maybe that's just me. So that is the overview of our 30-day Baby Ready challenge. We really do hope that you enjoy this challenge and it really helps prepare you for what's to come. If you have any questions or comments, or you just want to share something about parenthood, please let us know in the comments. I want to thank Eryn for helping me with this challenge. This would not have been possible, full stop, without her help. So please follow Eryn. Her links are going to be in the description box. I'm Jane. Thank you so much for watching this entire video. And if you are doing the challenge, I hope you enjoy it, and please let us know how you like it. I'll see you guys next video. Bye.